So, Adam, last week I asked you whether you knew the song One is the Loneliest Number. This week, do you remember Lena Lovitch?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No.
Her lucky number was 1, and then halfway through the song, her lucky number was 2. That's Brendan Bolton, isn't it?
What's really pleasing is our 3 leaders on the ground, Hodge, Lewis and Roughhead, stood up, won the ball, won contested footy, and, they showed the way for the others. So the big thing that came out of that is good leadership, and it really helps.
How happy is that bloke when he comes to an interview?
He's fantastic. He's a kid on Christmas every time. He's just rapt. He just thinks it's unreal. It's like if they rang me up and said, Glenn, Bards, you're coaching Hawthorn this week. Imagine how good it'd be. That's what he's like.
Even the media reckon he's refreshing.
Be interesting to see if he has to make some hard calls, what he's like.
All right, well, we've got plenty to cover this week, so, boys, let's fang it. Scores, Bards.
Hawthorn 19-9-123 defeating West Coast Eagles 12-7-79.
Goal kickers.
Roughhead with 8, Gunston with 3, Loudon with 3, and singles to Hodge, Smith, Suckling, Rioli and Bruce.
And amongst those goal kickers, 3 from Loudon. Wedders, did you see the phone call to his mum?
Yeah, it was terrific, wasn't it? And I dare say she may get another call this week to say he stays in the team.
Could have been quite embarrassing though, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could have been, but I tell you what, geez, he played well. He's up against it all day, against, very arguably, it might be said, the best ruck combination in the AFL, and he schooled the pair of them.
Look, I was a bit worried, though, when I heard that phone call. Could have been, I'm with your father right now. Remember Uncle Bob? He used to come round during the day.
I'm sure the club would have done what you do weekly and produced it and made it listenable for the Hawthorn fan base out there.
And Bards, Aaron went on to ask a question after those 3 goals, how often or how many players had actually debuted and kicked 3 goals. And I reckon to his surprise, there was a lot of players that had actually kicked more than 3, including Jonathan Coleman with 12.
Yeah, I think he was the 14th person to kick 3 or more. And yeah, as I pointed out, I remember Stephen Lawrence kicking a bag, but it was more than I thought it was and against a different team. But I was close.
And talking of the Coleman medal, it's pretty close at the moment. We've got 3 in contention.
Yes, they're all pretty much on the same score too, are they not?
Very close. But I don't think we're after individual honours. We're after 3 goal kickers that are up there and thereabouts.
That's it.
And I noticed Bruce is being heavily tagged now as a result of that. Wedders, did you notice that?
Yeah, look, I did. I think also he sort of ran decoy a little bit for Roughhead on the weekend. He's a very unselfish player, Bruce, and his time will come as it has in the past.
And Bards, if only Dwayne Russell could pronounce his name.
Bruce.
All right, well, on to the Barslow.
All right, pretty straightforward this week to start with anyway. 5 for Roughhead. You kick 8 goals, you get 5 votes from me, no worries at all. Ford, our main skipper there, Lukey Hodge, one of his classic games. 3 to Spanger. We don't lose with this bloke in the team. 22 possessions, a heap of intercept marks, especially in the second half. 2 to Lewis, led them well, and I've given 1 to Lukey Loudon. Anyone could have 1 there, but 3 goals on debut. As Adam said, rucking against one of the better pairings in the league and held his own, and he maybe could have got more votes if not for the haircut.
And do you realise now that after those votes, Bards has actually given 24 different players votes this season in what is 11 games. Fair spread of players.
Everybody's sharing the workload, which is exactly what the club asks for. The other guy I thought was almost worthy of a vote, and I reckon we found a real good player in Litherland. Genuine speed and just really good footy smarts. I think he is going to go a very long way.
gun, isn't he, Bards? A gun?
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought he was very good. And, with Stratton being injured, he's really taken up that role well. And the other one I thought had a good couple of weeks, has in the past gone missing in big games, is Isaac Smith, and sort of playing a bit of a different role off half forward at the moment, and he's playing it well.
Tell you what, I reckon someone who's underrated, definitely goes under the radar, and it's unfortunate we keep using the word under, is Poppy.
Has a job to do every week, and that's to provide harassment in the forward line and attack the ball and attack the players, and he does that. He's probably unlikely to be a small forward who's going to pop up with 5 or 6 goals, but he definitely makes his presence known.
And Bards, you've always commented on Sewell plays his best games in Tasmania or during the finals. He did it again. Adam, are you happy with that?
Yeah, I think there's a spot for Brad Sewell the way he plays. I think, interestingly, both Hallahan and Langford found themselves out of the side, not because they're not good young players, but because they're not doing certain things right, and both of them should take a leaf out of Brad Sewell's book and the way he plays.
All right, well, a couple of closing comments around Tasmania. We should congratulate the Tasmanians. It was a pretty strong crowd, looked like a pretty full house. I would say, and this is not meant to be a backhander, but that game would have probably attracted 45,000, 50,000 if it had been in Melbourne, surely, Bards.
Yeah, well, they played it last year at Etihad, if you remember correctly, based on them. It should have been a big crowd. So, yeah, I reckon on a Saturday afternoon, the MCG probably would have got 45. But if it was a 4:40 game on a Saturday night, I reckon it might have struggled. So, I mean, we have to give them something down there to worth watching. It's probably their best game they're going to get for the year.
Yeah, what was interesting, for some reason they decided to release an article saying that Hawthorn weren't putting into Tasmania. Would you agree with that?
No, I think that was a bit of a blow up, that one. It didn't seem to be based on much when you actually read into it. Yeah, I don't know. I did read something, I didn't think much of it.
Well, I don't think the President thought much of it. And, I mean, how much more can they expect us to put into Tasmania, where we've now got a Tasmanian coaching the team? We've got a player list manager and recruiting manager who's from Tasmania, and the football club manager, Chris Fagan, is also from Tasmania. You can't get much more Tasmanian than that, really. Well, let's move into Bards a Blast.
Yeah, mate, I've just got one simple, and it seems to be the best way to get out of a charge with the match review panel is to put a red and white jumper on. Seriously, what Franklin got off. First of all, I don't think that should be a suspendable offence, but that doesn't change the fact that it is under our current rules. Franklin did the exact same bump almost last year in a game against Sydney, got a week for it, had carryover points this time, but being that those carryover points would have forced him to miss another week and miss the big showdown with Port Adelaide, it looks like the AFL's just sort of had a quiet word in the ear somewhere and will say there's not a sufficient force there, and on your way, Lance, you're right to play out. Would not have had that treatment at Hawthorn. I don't care what anyone says. That's ridiculous, and he's a very lucky man.
Buddy who? Wedders.
Yeah, he would have been rubbed out for that in a brown and yellow jumper.
All right, well, talking of Crimestoppers, I'm going to put on my best Peter Hitchner voice now and read to you a Crimestoppers, which will then introduce one of Wedders' whacks. Crimestoppers this week concentrates on the cat burglary that occurred on Friday night, the 6th of June, at approximately 10:10 p.m. Carlton fans allege 4 premiership points were stolen from the Carlton Football Club. Police believe this is not an isolated incident, rather it was committed by a man well known to Hawthorn and AFL officials. Police are looking for a man wearing a blue and white hoop jumper with a number 14 on his back. Caucasian in appearance, age 26, 182 centimetres in height, 87 kilograms in weight, often seen in the Geelong area wearing a bandage around his head. Police believe he was later assisted by a man in a pink vest with words runner on it, going by the name of Nige. If you know this man, please advise not to approach him for fear you might do something you might regret. Rather, call Crimestoppers on 1-800-CLARKO. Crimestoppers, brought to you tonight by Hawk's One-Eyed View.
Oh, very good, Grant. Very good.
Wedders a whack.
Yeah, following on from that, Housey, it really would help if our umpires that are paid professionals allegedly actually knew the rules of the game before they took the field of play every week. Now, I can accept that with a lot going on a football field, a lot of infringements, they get missed. but there were two absolute howlers on the weekend. The first one had the young kid Menzel that plays for Carlton in the last 30 seconds of that game. Nearly had his head ripped clean off his shoulders, but for some reason the umpires put the whistle away in tight games towards the end because they don't want to award a free kick that might alienate one set of fans. That was a free kick. That cost Carlton the game. But the second one today was an absolute disgrace. Young Melbourne kid takes a mark. He moves off the mark. He hasn't dropped the ball, so there's no reason for the umpire to straighten him up. He moves sideways off the mark. At that point, he handballs to Bernie Vince, who kicks a goal for Melbourne. The umpire brings that back because he wants to straighten the guy up to take a shot on goal, when the rule says he simply has to call play on as soon as the player moves off his mark. Cost Melbourne a goal and momentum in a game today that could have gone either way at that point.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It was ridiculous. He's 60 or 55 metres out. He's not looking like having a shot at you. As soon as he took the mark, he turned around and he's looking to give it off. Because he moves 5 metres away, they reckon, oh, I've got to straighten you up. Call play on. Pretty straightforward.
Well, enough said about the umpiring. We've given a AFL view about the week as opposed to a Hawthorn view, so we'll move on. And Bards, you got set your homework again for that segment we all love, we wait for with bated breath, from the back line. Now, how do you want to do this? From the back line and then read 1 through to 22 so we can do an audit? Or do you want to do it the other way? We're in your hands.
I'll read the team out, then we can check over things if you like. I did post earlier that there's one position I had a bit of trouble with. It was a tough choice, but you'll see who I've gone with and we'll discuss it then. So, from the back line, Collins, Mew, Ayres, halfbacks O'Halloran, Gibson and Hodge. The centre line is Pritchard, Mitchell and Crawford. The half-forward line's Wallace, Martello and Buckenara. The full-forward line is Hudson, Dunstall and Brust. The rucks are Lawrence, Tuck and Matthews. And the interchange, Bateman, Paul Deere, Vandenberg and Bremner. Obviously, the hardest one for me was the number 9. I had to choose between Crawford and Dipper. Premiership players, Brownlow medalists, 250-odd games plus each. Crawford's obviously got 300. I don't know how to separate them. Crawford led the club through a down period and carried them on his shoulders. Dipper played in more premierships and one with a broken rib and a punctured lung. So pretty hard blokes to separate. I've gone with Crawford just because he's probably a bit closer in our minds at the moment, but could have gone either way there.
Did you think about tipping one of them upside down and calling them a number 6?
I did think about that. And number 6 there, players I had down for that, Mark Williams, obviously, who played in the Premiership, Josh Gibson and Michael Moncrief. Moncrief I was originally going to go with, but he's pretty hard to get a game in a forward line that already has Dunstall and Hudson in it, so we didn't need another full forward, so Gibbo got the go, so I couldn't turn the other blokes upside down.
It was a hard call.
It was a hard thing to do because you're tossing up, like I wanted to put Calvin Moore at full back, but how do I leave Luke Hodge out? I've put Chris Mew at full back there as the number 2, which means Roughhead misses out, but also Graham Arthur missed out. He was our first premiership captain and legend of the club as well, so very hard. Mitchell and Peter Crimmon's number 5, what do you do there? I mean, Crimo, as we know, tragically cut short. Mitchell's probably had the better career for that reason, so could have been a lot of changes. I even picked a second side that would have probably challenged most sides going around, so we've got a lot of talent, let's just say that.
What did you think of the team, Wedders? You set the homework.
I couldn't have done it any better. I was very interested to find out who Bards went with the number 9 jumper, and I'm actually very happy that he did go with Crawford. Much as Dipper is an icon of the game, not just the Hawthorn Footy Club, Shane Crawford, I think, is a genuine champion, and I think a guy that still gets underrated because he played in a side that was pretty ordinary for a long time. He would have walked into that side in the 80s as an on-baller without any problems whatsoever.
I see with interest that you went with Andy Collins as number 4. He did wear number 5, but that excluded Paul Salmon.
Left Salmon out, which is probably a bit stiff seeing he's in our team of the century, so I may have made a little blue there. But look, I had blokes with premierships and I probably gave them the edge. So Collins obviously there with the number 4. Ladson was obviously in contention but doesn't have the resume of Andy Collins. That's about it, I'd say. Another bloke who was very stiff to miss out, Ian Law, who's another team of the century member. Unfortunately for him, Gary Ayres is also in the team of the century and more the same number. So, yeah, there's a few numbers that struggled a bit. compared to others. So sometimes you're just unlucky to have had blokes in your number that were good players as well.
All right. Well, Adam, is this going to be like the Beatles' 1962 to 66 album, and then they had the blue one, the 67 to 70? Are you now going to ask him to do 23 to 44?
No, I'm not, because I think once you get into the 30s and 40s, it becomes very difficult. Obviously, Platten gets number 44. From 44 down to about 30, I reckon it becomes really tough. So I actually have one for Bards this week. And it's not to denigrate anybody at all. It's just a bit of fun. But what I would like you to do, Bards, say post-1980, so that most of our listeners will know who most of the players are. Post-1980, they must have played a dozen games or thereabouts or more, not one and two games, but I want you to pick the worst Hawthorn 22.
Oh, that'll be fun.
And as I say, not to denigrate any of the players, because I think you've got to be a brilliant footballer to even get one AFL game.
I think we know who the ruckman is.
Currently playing, is he? Oh, no, he hasn't played 12 games.
Oh, that's harsh.
No,
all right,
it's going to be McAvoy, Mr. McAvoy hater.
Oh, moving on. A couple of things I noticed on the weekend. Did you see in the best for Box Hill, and they lost by a couple of points? The starting two in the best were Collins, Langford. I was expecting to read Ayres. Who's Collins?
Box Hill kid, nothing to do with Hawthorn.
Damn. And the other thing, someone to do with Hawthorn, is big raps on him, guy called Harrison Deere. Isn't he Paul Deere's son, playing for Sandringham Dragons?
Yeah, Harry Deere is indeed. He's playing for Sandringham and actually played in the Vic Metro team on the weekend that lost down at Geelong on Sunday. A mate of mine is actually the forwards coach at Sandringham, and so he looks after Harry, and he said he's just a great kid. Big lumbering lad, 96 centimetres, about 90-odd kilos. So he's a big boy, got a bit to learn, apparently. A few areas to work on, but every chance that he could be father son at the end of the year.
How old?
18, just 18. Last year, under 18s this year. Can't confirm whether his head looks like a pumpkin like his old man's, but we'll see.
All right, well, that's great news. So let's move on. We're getting nearer to the end of the show. Nearest to the pin. And last week, Adam, this is what you said. And nearest to the pin, Adam.
43 points.
43 points. How good's that? 1 point off. Happy with that one?
I am truly gifted.
Right. Well, this week then, we are playing Carlton on Friday night, Friday the 13th. Away game for us at the G. Kick-off at 7:50. Nearest to the pin, Adam.
4! Well, I think Carlton may have fired their last shot on Friday night, and as such, I think they may fall away. Hawthorn by 68 points.
Oof. Bards?
4!
Probably not quite that confident. Look, I think we'll win it and win fairly well. I'll go with 45 points.
All right, I'm nearer to Bards.
4!
I'm on 37. Now, should we be worried at all? Worried about Judd coming back? Will that have an influence?
If he comes back, he's going to be fairly rusty. I don't think he's going to be tearing a game apart. We looked a lot better, especially in the second half on the weekend. We got some stuff to work on. A couple of quarters there, we were fairly average, but a couple were really good. And, you know, we get that play going again. The midfield's starting to come good. Lewis was great. He'll be in under with Hodgie and that, so I think we'll be all right. Ruffhead's got newfound confidence again. When, you know, with that forward line's going, as good as Jamison is, he can't play on three of our blokes, and we've got three genuine match winners up there, so I think we'll be fine.
Likely changes, Wedders. Chaney will come out, surely.
Well, it really depends on who's coming in. I think Lake will probably come back in through Box Hill, but apparently he's up and ready to go this week. I don't know whether there'll be very many changes at all, to be honest. I don't know whether McAvoy is back this week. I, again, don't know whether Hale is back this week. Possibly one of those will come in, and if so, probably Loudon would be very unlucky. I hope he gets another game.
Hawthorn will go out with his elbow injury. Apparently it's nothing too major, but definitely wouldn't be up this week. So that probably opens the door for one of Simpkin or Langford again, I'd say. Outside chance they might go with a Woodward or even a Ben Ross, who didn't seem to have a great game for Box Hill going by the stats. So, yeah, there might be an opportunity for someone to get a run there, but not too much happening, I wouldn't have thought.
Well, that's another show. So, go Hawks.
Hawks.
And Hawks.